Amazing.
Are we good? You hear me? Apologies to anyone who heard me accidentally shout, "It's Britney, bitch," when we didn't realise the microphone was off. Hi, everyone. So I'm Emily Jeffrey-Barrett. I'm the founder of Among Equals. And yeah, slightly Halloween-y vibe here. Not intentional, but maybe that's just me. Today, I want to talk to you about lies, particularly the lies that we're told throughout our career, the lies that we tell ourselves, and how when you get to the truth of the matter, it makes it possible to dare. So I had wanted to set up a business for absolutely ages. I started my career as a copywriter. Among Equals is 5 years old now, and we work with ambitious brands to help them level the playing field. That's why we're called Among Equals. I had been waiting for the perfect time to set this business up, and then I thought, hey, COVID seems like a great time, global recession. That's a good idea, isn't it? But 5 years later, I'm delighted that I did it. We've got an incredible team. We've got 2 studios now, one in London and one in Dubai. And we work with some clients that I think when I started the business, I would have had to pinch myself to believe it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the work later, but you all spend all day, every day, looking at work. So what I want to talk about instead today is what happens before the work starts. So before you start, for me, it was a new business, but it could be a new job, could be the start of a new project. I think it's really easy to listen to the noise. And some of that noise is in our own heads, and some of it comes from other people. And it can be anything from, what if people laugh at me? It's too risky, it's too soon. Or even, what if it actually works and then I can't handle it? And for me, this noise was quite deafening, but ultimately, it kind of all came down to this one single, quite sad truth, I think, that was feeling like I'm not enough. Which frankly is ironic for me, given the number of times in my career I've been told that I'm too much, or I need to get back in my box, or I need to stop seeking attention. I mean, I thought that our job was to seek attention, but I obviously got that one wrong. And I think it's really interesting in our industry, because essentially it's an industry that's built on confidence. But we're really, really good at talking ourselves out of things. So today I just want to talk you through a few of the lies I've told myself along the way, starting with this one. It's not the right time. So I had told myself for probably 6-7 years, by the time I actually set a business up, that I was waiting for the perfect time. I was waiting to have the right amount of savings. I was waiting to have really stronger client relationships, the right team about me, all of this stuff. And then this hit, not specifically Rishi's Eat Out to Help Out scheme, though that probably did prompt me to think more about what we could do as a copywriting community to help people. But COVID hit and everything just turned upside down. And I realized at that point, there is never going to be a perfect time, right? I could wait for another 3-5 years. I could get loads of money. I could be really industry famous, whatever that means. And, I could do all of that. And then a parade of killer bees could attack London. And who knows where we're going to be. And this was quite a confronting thing for me, because I think at that point, I'd been saying to myself, oh no, I'm actually just being really strategic. I'm being very cautious. I'm being very sensible and grown up about it. But the reality was that I was just scared, I think, of doing it and taking the plunge. And I think that this is a really common thing. But ultimately, if you're kind of perfecting something, and we really exist in an industry, I think, that values perfection, perfecting ideas, perfecting decks. So that's basically my life. It is really easy to wait, but if you're waiting, someone else is just out there doing it. Few examples: Fleabag, greatest TV series of our time. Fight me for it later if you disagree. This only exists because Phoebe Waller-Bridge's friend had 10 minutes to fill at Edinburgh, and she said yes. Frankenstein, again, one of the greatest horror stories ever written, only exists because a group of writers were trapped in a house reading some horror stories, and they weren't very good, and Mary Shelley accepted a dare. The final one, Agatha Christie, Queen of Crime, who gets me to sleep every night. Information nobody needs to know. Her entire her great works exist because her sister bet her that she couldn't write a great detective novel where people could guess the murderer. All of these things, these great pieces of work, these great artists, only exist because they said yes in situations when it would have been very easy to say no. So when this happened and kind of everything turned upside down, I stopped asking myself, what if it doesn't work, or what if I'm not ready? And instead, I asked myself, what if I wake up in a year's time or a decade's time and I've never tried? And for me, that was a really, really frightening realization. And at that point, literally the second that I realized that, I messaged my boss, handed my notice in at my lovely job with lovely people, and incorporated the business. Because I realized, far from it there being a right time, for me at least, change happens when the fear of not doing something outweighs the fear of doing it. I don't know if anybody else has ever experienced that, but I still look back and, I'm very grateful that I came to that realization when I did. The next one, quite closely linked to that, is a simple one, a negative one. You can't do this. And this was, a lot of it was in my head. A lot of it also, though, was noise from other people, including probably quite worried parents. The first one was, you can't do this because you've never run a business, which was true. I had never run a business. That one didn't bother me so much, probably because I, at the time, had no idea what it actually took to run a business, so I was living in hope. But I also kind of feel like this, right? The only difference between someone who wants to be a novelist and a novelist is that one of them's written a book. So one day I hadn't run a business, and the next day I had. Maybe that's my Yorkshire pragmatism coming through, but I was like, that one's all right. I'm not worried about that. The next one, and I heard this a lot, particularly from creatives, is, you can't do this. You're a creative. And I'm like, if a creative can't create a business, who can? I don't know what the misconception is about what we all sit around and do all day, but as far as I'm concerned, creatives are just problem solvers. And, a little known truth, but we can, in fact, create more than just puns. And one day I might try to. The next one is probably the darkest one. And this was a little bit of a mental struggle for me, I'll be honest. You can't do this because you're a woman. This was not coming from any evidence of women not being able to run businesses or feeling like I didn't have the requisite skills. It came from the statistics. So apologies, we're going into diagram mode here, and they do get a bit funny on your eyes, so I'll skip past quickly. Right, as of 2024, according to Creative Equals, only 12% of women in the UK, 12% of creative directors in the UK are women, right? Which looks a bit like this, which is, pretty sparse. When you then look at the statistics around women-owned agencies, some of them say 1%, so 1 in 100 creative agencies is run by women. Some of them say 0.1%, which looks like this, which is pretty bleak when you're trying to decide whether or not to quit your nice stable job and become one of this cohort. These stats used to really intimidate me, because I used to think like there must be a reason why it's not happening and what's going on. But ultimately, I feel like the stats are low because they're low, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So once I'd kind of gotten over all the previous lies about, it's not the right time and you can't do this, I was left to confront this one. And if I'm really honest, I had a bit of a deep down fear that people might not want to work with me because I was a woman. Like there might be some clients out there who didn't want that, which is a pretty tough thought to have, I think. But I think ultimately, like whoever we are, this is not a unique feeling. We've probably all experienced things like this, and like I've experienced all of these as well, So I think whatever your concerns are about people working with you, I got to a point where I was like, do you know what? That might be true, but like, who cares, right? Because if people don't want to work with me, I'll go and find someone who will. Because ultimately, and it's taken me a while to get here, but I do really believe this. If the room isn't listening, it's not that you don't have anything to say or you're saying the wrong thing. It's just that you're in the wrong room and you need to go and find the room that will listen. The next one, and this, I mentioned Yorkshire earlier. I've just been talking to Si upstairs about being from Yorkshire. This is a particular refrain from my childhood, right? I was always told, school's the best days of your life, and work's called work for a reason. It's meant to be serious, and it's not meant to be fun. Like, thank God that didn't happen to me. We all have the privilege of working in what's called the creative industry. When you take fun and joy out of creativity, do you know what you're left with? You're left with PowerPoint. And I don't know about you guys, but I did not get into this industry to spend more time with this little guy. And I know his Microsoft Word, PowerPoint didn't have one. Like, don't come at me about it. So, far from work's meant to be, serious and hard work, at Among Equals, we don't just prioritize fun, we actively engineer for it. So just a few of the ways we do that. Number one, we hire people specifically who are going to be additive to our culture. So that's like the first thing that we look out for. Yes, of course, we want talented people and everybody in the studio is incredible. But this first and foremost is really important. The second is we have KPIs around weirdness and expressions of weirdness we think are a very good thing. Not because we're like, oh, we're quirky, we're cool, we've got beanbags on the slide, but because if people feel comfortable being weird, it means that they feel psychologically safe. And that's exactly what you need when you are in the business of coming up with ideas. And then finally, we have a kind of informal rule where we expect people to take the work seriously. And like, God knows I take the business seriously. Ask my poor husband who hasn't had a decent holiday with me forever. But we don't take ourselves seriously at all. There is a very big distinction between the work and our own egos. And you can say that that's frivolous, but thanks to ChatGPT, this is a rendering of my grandparents who grew up in Ireland. And one of them was a bottle washer, and the other one, her husband, their lovely husband, was a sheep stealer. And they don't look that happy, do they? Not great. So like, as far as I'm concerned, all of us in this room have basically pulled a fast one, right? Because not only have we woken up as sentient humans on a spinning rock that's hurtling through space, we get paid to come up with ideas. Like, that's our reality. So I feel like if we can't have fun, who can? And when you're in the business of coming up with ideas, it's really important to create the right environment for that, because good ideas do not happen in environments like this, right, where it's sterile and you're excluded and you're separated from other people. They happen in spaces like this. And yes, I watch a lot of television. Again, it's all fine. But look how happy Adam Scott is there. But I think, silly point, but a serious one. You do need that chemistry. You need collaboration. You need to genuinely want to, have the best for each other, look out for each other, enjoy spending time together to do the best work. And ultimately, none of us got into this industry to produce, right? We got into it to create. And so for me, the truth of the matter is that fun is absolutely not the enemy of good work at all. I actually think it's a condition for it. Which leads me to my next point, some of you might disagree with. I have heard this from hundreds of people throughout my career about both colleagues and clients. Work is about making everything, according to a lot of people, except friends. Number of people who told me you can't be true friends with colleagues, and you definitely shouldn't try to be friends with clients there's a lot of them. But let me put this to you, right? Am I talking here about a friendship, like a really good friendship, or a really good client relationship? So you spend a decent amount of time together and enjoy hanging out. You have common ambitions and interests and loads to talk about. You have their best interests at heart and help them achieve their goals. You overcome challenges together, which makes the relationship stronger. And finally, there's mutual respect. So you bring different things to the partnership and are grateful to have each other in your lives. I think that this could be either a friendship or a great client relationship, and I think it's both. So some of the things I'm proudest of throughout my career are the relationships that we have with clients, because for two reasons, really. One of them is I think when you have that really trusted, safe relationship, it makes the experience of work better, but it also makes the work itself better because you feel much safer taking risks. But the really good thing when you have a client that you really get on with is that they let you do things like this. So this was part of a campaign that we did for Grind Coffee's home compostable coffee pods. And it was part of a series. So the rest of the series was all about kind of London life. This is really the brand that we've built with them. We've been working with these guys for the last 5 years. And after a while of trying to have the same brief every time, like how do you sell home compostable coffee pods that break down in weeks that are fit for your Nespresso machine? You have to get quite creative. So this was a series that ran quite a few executions, but the last minute, we had an opportunity to submit some kind of quite late artwork. Saltburn had just come out. We've got to have a really very specific understanding of the Grind audience, especially in London. And we knew that this was kind of somewhere where we could have some alignment. So rather than trying to sell coffee all the time, we really look for ways to insert the branding culture. And we wanted to do something that would not just say to people, we get you, we've got products for you, we know who you are, but would actually demonstrate it by letting them in on a joke that we were in on too. And for those of you who don't know, and I'll skip past this quite quickly, this is a reference to this delightful scene. I hope there are no children here, so apologies if there are. So, a pretty niche play. And to be honest, this goes against like everything that we're told to do all the time, right? You're not supposed to make niche in jokes on mass media like TFL, above the line. You're not supposed to do stuff that people won't understand. But we felt really confident that this would have kind of life beyond. And the result was that this ended up, like quite a lot of them in the series got decent traction online. This got a huge amount of attention and actually ended up earning more attention than Grind had bought through the media spots. So that, for me, is a really good example of why you need friends. It also is a great example of this being like one of the ultimate lies. There's a time and a place to play it safe. When you are a people pleaser like me, and like God knows if anybody's pleased with me, please let me know. Especially when you start a company in the middle of a pandemic and you've got no capital and no investment, the temptation to play it safe sometimes, honestly, is extreme. And I wish I could say it wasn't. I wish I could be like, no, I always wanted to do something that was completely wild and like broke all the rules of every brief. But sometimes you're like, the client's been really clear on what they want and I can get this invoice in probably and that'll cover all my costs for next month. Anyway, the temptation is there. But in reality, there is no such thing as playing it safe for us, right? Because if you're playing it safe, you're going to get ignored. And the stats back that up. So according to System 1, 50% of TV ads are less interesting than watching cows chew grass for 30 seconds. So any advertising people here, half of what we put on the TV, people would rather watch a cow chew, which is quite a sobering stat. The next one, 89% of all advertising gets ignored. By the way, that doesn't mean that the other 11% is really liked. 11% gets noticed, and a lot of that is strongly disliked. But the biggest risk that brands face is not criticism, it's indifference. And I appreciate, there's a couple of big ad stats there. It is a lot easier to find statistics on advertising than branding, as I'm sure you all know. But if you build a great brand that is impossible to ignore, it also makes the advertising easier. And at Among Equals, we kind of do both in a symbiotic way. A few years ago, we had a really exciting brief from a dermatologist who wanted to launch a kind of dermocosmetic skincare startup. So this category has exploded recently. Probably a lot of you recognize people like Skin and Me, Dermatica. And she came to us and she said, right, can I please have a brand that looks like this? Because I want to have a company that's like this because they're successful and I want to be like that. And you know what? Like, it can be easy to be like, oh, no, she wants to be the same as everyone else. She was right to ask for that. Like, that's what the evidence tells you to do. So, WARC best practice guide, new brands can't afford to confuse people. They have to play by the rules before they can rewrite them. When in doubt, copy your competitor's best-selling SKU. That's the advice there from the 1970s Unilever training manual. The challenge that she had was she didn't have any budget to outspend anybody, right? So she couldn't possibly buy anything close to the amount of attention that the Skin and Me's of the world were doing. So we needed to take a different approach. So we spent like pretty much all of our strategy time just really understanding the audience and getting to know them. And we narrowed it down to an incredibly tight persona. And we realized that this was a product that basically was for like quite impatient, ambitious women. Because these people, and we talked to a lot of them, they didn't want really fancy prescription skincare. They just wanted better skin as quickly as possible without having to do a 10-step routine every morning and spending 20 minutes chained to the sink. So we use that as inspiration for this brand, Uncouth, rule-breaking skincare. So Uncouth is a brand that is inspired by and built for rebellious women. So we had a lot of fun with this brand. We aligned products to historical women. Anne was off with her blackheads. So if you know your Tudor history, you'll think that's really funny and clever. Marie Antoinette, French girl skin. Lady Macbeth, the double cleanser because she was washing her hands because of the guilt. But basically, there's many more jokes hidden in here. This broke pretty much every category code out there. And I think it's safe to say that all of us were a little bit nervous about it, right? We were having these conversations with her being like, are we going to do it? Yeah, we're going to do it. But we're so glad we did, because like for her, number one, she raised a pretty serious amount of investment just on the back of the brand before launch. Number two, this business was profitable in month one and has remained so ever since, which is a pretty staggering achievement for a startup. Even then, even when you're like, you know, I'm a bit nervous, but I'm confident, there's still this voice, I think, in the back of your mind that says, oh, what if they don't buy it? And we've all been there, right? We've all been in meetings where you put your heart in something, you love something, and then the client says, oh, I don't really get it, or it's not for us. Where we've got to, if that's the case, is we find someone who will. This was a really like liberating moment for me when I started a business and I realized that I could just do that and I didn't have to persuade anybody above me that I had to do it. But I honestly think if you care about an idea, you can make it happen. So we came up with an idea for Pay Gap Day, which is actually coming out very soon. We wanted to create a site where we could sell fake women's empowerment products, like stupid products that were as stupid as the existence of gender inequality in 2025. And then, you know, when you click buy, the proceeds would go to charity. And we pitched it to a client of ours and they just kind of didn't really get it. They were like, we don't hate it, but like, why would we do that? Let's just do some billboards. So we went and found the Girls Network and we gave it to them for Christmas. So at the time, they were a really tiny charity. They do incredibly important work empowering women and girls, and they loved the idea. So we gave it to them pro bono as a Christmas present. So kept it very, very simple, designed a little website. We called it the Empowerium. I wanted to call it She-Bae, but my lawyer was like, please God, Emily, like not another cease and desist. I can't do it. Again, there's lots of copy jokes hidden in here. We sold products like these, pay gap filler. I think we had some double standard spectacles in there as well. A women's winter gilet. Shout out to anybody who's freezing in the office aircon. When you clicked buy, you went to an error page and it said, sorry, it's been removed due to sexism. Would you like to donate instead? Really, really simple idea. This was the most successful campaign they've ever done before or since. Got record donations for them. They had no media budgets. They put nothing into promoting this at all. We basically gave them a website and they were like, thanks. This is great. It got national press coverage and the editor of a national women's magazine joined their board just off the back of seeing this. We were incredibly proud of that. And actually, it worked so well that the next year, we managed to persuade Cold Drops Yard to donate a shop, and then we did it for real. So we set up an installation, we got brands and celebrities to donate products that then we raffled off. And for us, like, this was a really important project, not just because we were happy to help the charity and we were proud of the work, was because it gave us this realization that like somebody saying it's not for us does not mean it's not good. It's so easy, I think, to judge the inherent value of something based on whether somebody else likes it. Again, I'm a people pleaser, so I know the feeling. But this was a real turning point for us. And it really proved that there basically is no time and place to play it safe. Like, it's our job to push on behalf of our clients. And that's even more kind of important when you think about the modern world, because what we're up against every time we put any work out is this. And you hear a lot of people talking about the number of ads that people see a day that you've got to cut through, the number of brands that they interact with every day. And that's fine. But really, we're competing with the celebrity traitors. I mean, well done to all of you for coming here tonight when that's on, because, God knows what will happen when we get out. But I think when you bear this in mind, it really shows that actually playing it safe, there is no such thing. Doing that is in and of itself reckless, because ultimately the most dangerous thing that brands can do is be ignored. If you are not helping your clients get attention, number one, somebody else is getting it, and number two, you might as well just burn their budget. And this, I think, I know this sounds like a really harsh reality. I hope I'm not depressing you all. I don't think this is a harsh reality at all. I think this is like a really liberating feeling for us, because it gives us like not just permission, it gives us agency. We've got a duty to go out and make sure that our clients are getting noticed. And I think it's hard in our industry, right? Because I think we've got this perception that like, this is how people look at the work we do, right? It's like we're there, like we're perfecting an ad, we're like really crafting an icon. We're like, oh God, people are going to really get the love in this, right? Nice. The reality is, if we're lucky, more like this. So there's something on kind of in the background. We've all seen those like dodgy billboards. You think your poster's going to look amazing on a billboard and then it's like falling down and somebody's graffitied on it. This is a difficult thing to come to. We've built a business on this realization. Because where we got to was, and I don't know about your families, but like my grandparents are not sitting at home now in Yorkshire, not the bottle washer, the other ones. They're not sitting at home talking about like a latest rebrand or a campaign or, you know, what's on LinkedIn. I don't think they've even heard of LinkedIn. Even friends of mine who are in adjacent industries, like, and they're nowhere near as plugged in as I always expect them to be. And ultimately, people aren't sitting around doing this. They're at home thinking, okay, what am I going to have for dinner? How am I going to get my kid to eat some vegetables? Oh my God, my boss has been so annoying. She keeps trying to make everything fun at work all the time. I don't want to be friends with her. And the reality that we've got to is no one cares. Let's change that. So this is what we exist to do as an agency. And if I can leave you with kind of one thing, and I mean this in a really nice way, because I found it really freeing, like the same applies to all of us. Like if you want to give something a go, just give it a go. No one's sitting around thinking, oh God, they've failed. That's so stupid. Like no one cares if you start something small. No one cares if you wear a weird outfit or think you're Britney Spears with a microphone on. And once you realize that, and you realize that the world is not watching and the world is not waiting, you can let go of all the noise and all the lies that you tell yourself and everything that other people tell you and actually get started with what you want to do. Thanks so much.